things get going. How's that?
Thank you.
Well,
I think.
yeah. How you doing?
I'm well. I'll ask your consideration because you know what time it is in California?
Yes.
It's lunchtime.
Well, eat something.
I am.
I'm not going to bother me.
Doing this, you'll understand why.
It's all good, man.
We'll give it about 30 more seconds, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
All right. No problem. And Eric, has his third baby.
Mm-hmm.
3 girls under 2 years, 3 months.
How's he dealing with that?
He loves it, and he hates it all at the same time. It's like having triplets.
Uh-huh. A lot of work. And
He's-
they're girls. Just wait till they hit the teenage years.
I know. And he works 12-hour days.
Wow.
He calls me when he gets back from work because he's in Phoenix,
Oh, yeah.
He just like shakes his head, and the girls are tackling him, and he loves every minute of it.
That's great. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? First of all, I'd like to thank Alan for taking his afternoon to be with us. And this afternoon, the topic is, are you digging deep enough in your fact findings? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Kovitz.
Gee, thanks. So I'm just to espouse on this?
Yes.
Well, here's the world according to me with this. One, maybe either one of you two can answer, what does fact-finding really mean? What is it? Because I don't even like the term.
So I'll take a stab at it because I come from two different worlds, right? One, the world of the military, aerospace, and defense, and fact finding is usually associated with a proposal. And somebody submitted a proposal to the government, and then they'll go fact finding to make sure that the proposal has all of the validity that it needs to have, right?
Okay.
The other case in aerospace and defense is when you had a problem or a crisis and you go into a problem resolution mode, you're going into a root cause analysis and you go do fact finding.
Okay.
So in my current world, though, I interpret that as more of a wants and needs discovery.
Okay. So let's clarify that. I'm with you.
To say discovering wants and needs because it's more about just facts. It's about emotions and all that other good stuff.
Thanks, Wendy. You just hit it out of the park, first thing. But so that's the first thing to talk about really is that what this is discovering wants and needs. That's number one. And, what is the difference between wants and needs? And I would say needs are facts. Those are the raw figures. How many employees do you have? How much on the average does each salesperson sell? So those are facts. And the needs are, I need to make this number double. That's a need. So I believe that's it. It's just facts. The wants really goes back to what Wendy said. That's where the emotion comes in. And I think, when we talk about not going deep enough, from what I've seen and heard, talked about with many affiliates, that's exactly where the game slowed down for them. Is that? What's up, Tom?
Hey, Alan, can you hear me?
Yeah, man, hear you just
Not
fine.
muted. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So I think that's where we fall down, because it's a whole lot easier to ask a prospect how many employees they have, but not to ask them, what does it really mean to you? Most of our prospects are business owners, presidents, CEOs, what have you. They're not used to being asked the questions that I believe we need to ask. And back to Mike's point early on, facts, to put in a proposal, I would agree with, but I don't believe proposals sell. I really don't. It's a document, spitting back to someone something they already know because they told it to you. That's it. So it's just a document of reiterating what's already been said, as I see it.
So, Alan, I don't want to throw you off your
Throw me off.
thought process, but I'm going to throw you off. So, if you believe we need to ask a different type of question, more on the wants, what are some good questions that an affiliate may want to consider putting in their repertoire or repository of questions?
You know, I think it's using the word want instead of needs. That's the start. So asking Mr. CEO, what do you want for this organization? Now, what do you need? What is the board telling you to do? You know, and getting to that point. Remember, in order for us to deserve to even get to this point, Wendy, we have to have gained favorable attention.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, gaining favorable attention, that is the key to a sale. You know, you've made a friend. You made a friend to the point where they're going to tell you the truth. They believe in you, you believe in them. And that might take a lot longer than one might think. But once we're to that point, it's about asking that person, what do they want? You know? So that's starting with the verbiage. But it really is along those lines. What will it mean to him or her if the fact happens? If you double your sales, don't give me the BS answer that, you know, your stock price is going to go up or that you'll make a bonus. So what? And that's one of the questions. That's the Wendy Howland question. It is. So what?
Exactly.
It is. Well, that's a great question. You know, I don't use the what most of the time. I just use so because I like short. So
here's a longer one.
Go ahead.
So what will that enable you to do
Mm-hmm.
that you can't do now?
Now. Absolutely. How's
I
that change? Love it. Love it. You know, so what you're doing is a change, you know, a mode of change. You're getting into that, what they can do differently. What's the bonus? What's the add? What's the reward for making
And why is that important to you?
Mm-hmm. To you, not to the company,
Mm-hmm.
to the individual. Because I don't know about any of you.
I just pressed play and I asked those two questions. And like,
It's amazing, isn't it, Tom? Because it's amazing the responses you get. It really is. You know, I think, you know, especially after you've gained favorable attention and someone is a friend and someone's willing to share with you anything that's on their mind. You know, I think that's what comes to them, the things that are really happening. Well, you know what? I really have enough time to see my mother in the nursing home. Wow. You know, what does that mean to you? Well, it means the world to me. You know, right now I don't have time. I see her once a month for half an hour. But if I can carve out an hour every week, and I can do that by doing this. So right, I'm right with you, Tom.
and how much longer do you think your mother has?
Yeah. So getting involved in everything, it's going down the path that you're led to, you know, without having an agenda. My agenda is the prospect's agenda. And I like what you just said, Tom, because that, you know, you go down the rabbit hole with them because that's where the emotion is. It really is.
But you have to, again, it's about ongoing favorable attention. You don't ask that question for the purpose of being manipulative. You ask it because you're genuinely curious. And maybe you've been there and, you know, you ask it with that perspective.
And if the prospect comes back to you and says, what makes that so important for you to know? Then you know you don't have favorable attention.
Mm-hmm.
If they challenge you even asking the question, where they're clamming up on you, you know you got to go back.
Well, and you should go back and review the level of empathy in which you've asked that question.
Absolutely.
Because if you genuinely care about them, you're not going to get that answer.
Right. Right. And then they trust you, and they're going to say what's on their mind, and that's the beautiful thing. All I can say, and you know, Mike and Tom, you guys can back this up, but 99% of the sales I've made in this business are because I've had the willingness to go down those paths and get into those questions that make people clam up, make them cry, you know, really get into them because they've never been asked that. Or they've been asked it by people they don't have the favorable attention with. They're not willing to share, including their spouse, including their vice presidents, including their best friends. They just won't say that. So we become that sounding board where they're willing to share everything. That's when you have a client. So that's digging deeper, Wendy. Hope that we answered the question in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's it. I mean, we certainly can explore different questions, but that's where we're going.
So Mike and Tom, do either of you have any questions for Alan as far as the buying process? Maybe if you have, example of where you got stuck, and maybe you could ask Mr. Kovitz for what you might have done differently.
So I'll offer a couple of things. First of all, I've learned in the hard way, don't deal with non-decision makers for very long, right? I spent a lot of time, last fall dealing with two people that turned out to be non-decision makers. And then they weren't willing to go forward and represent me as like an internal coach. And so that's one big thing I learned. I had lots of favorable attention. I had good rapport. I established need and value.
Need and value to whom?
Well, I thought to them personally, right?
To them personally. So may I challenge you?
Yeah.
So were those individuals not decision makers for themselves?
They are, but I don't think, and maybe this is an assumption on my part, right? I don't think that they would be willing to engage out of their own pocket anything that was involving their success at the company, right?
Wow.
Now that may have been a gross assumption on my part, where I failed. And one of them is kind of like the door's shut, right? He says, "Hey, it was very nice talking to you. I really enjoyed our conversations. Good luck," right? In other words, don't call me. Right. The other one is, I work with her. She's a general manager of a Holiday Inn Express. And I work with her in the Latino Business Alliance, and she now heads it. And so I continue to, do things to help her out and those kind of things. And so that's a really good point. I did broach the subject with her about, we kind of dropped the conversation of how I could help her in business, and I'd like to pick that up. And she says, "Oh, absolutely." So I just have to go forward. So this is good, Alan, because now I'm going to look at, what can I do for her personally?
Bingo. And I would say that's the angle I take with every prospect. Once coaching became legal, in the old days, we used to think about groups. We never thought about one-on-one coaching. But once, and it was still a long time ago, once that was in my bailiwick, I regard everyone I speak to as the decision maker, be it a house husband or a cleaning lady. And I've had both of those as clients. It's always shocked me what individuals will pay to help themselves if they believe in you. So you will do one-on-one coaching, right, Mike?
I do. I'm not a certified coach, but I just follow the process. And
sure. So you would still do it. So again, I've heard this so many times at power sessions and what we used to call them prior. Well, I don't go to networking meetings because there are a bunch of realtors there, and I go, oh boy. To me, that's shooting fish in a barrel. Because good realtors, they spend thousands of dollars on bettering themselves and coaching, both in and out of the business. So I don't mind speaking to a realtor. Yeah.
Question for Mike. Back when you were a civilian, back when you were in that world and you had a W-2, how willing were you to spend money on your own outside of what the company would do? How willing were you?
I'm trying to think how to answer that, because I guess I never was confronted with the opportunity. And the company sent me to a fair number of courses, and I did a lot of reading on my own, but I don't think I ever actually bought a program from anybody. I'm trying to think back. I don't think I did.
So why do you think I'm asking you that question?
Well, because if I had bought something for myself, then it would be obvious other people would do it too. And that may be why I believe other people won't do it, because I never did it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. It's one of those silly things, Mike, that we don't think of, but it's out there.
I think what you're telling me is that we tend to project ourselves and assume everybody else is just like us, right?
That's one thing. But we do make a lot of assumptions.
Well, I'm going to frame it in a coaching perspective, Mike. What are your self-limiting beliefs here? So you have an assumption that no one would spend their own money. It would have to be the company. And so how long you want to hold on to that belief? What's it doing to you?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I'm sure, Mike, you run into entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs oftentimes are running small companies, might be by themselves. That's become my target. I no longer go into larger companies unless I'm asked, and sometimes I am. But other than that, I'm working with entrepreneurs strictly. Because what I've found is a couple things. One, I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm dealing with someone like myself. Two, the great entrepreneurs I know are never satisfied. They always want to do better in some way, shape, or form. Oftentimes they don't know how to do it, and we're one of the vehicles to help them do it different and better. And coaching is a primary way we do that.
Okay, so I'm going to expose another self-limiting belief, right?
Great.
We're here for you.
Don't have any money to spend on this because they're strapped for cash. That's my self-limiting belief. Tell me how I'm wrong.
I'll tell you how you're wrong. I don't know about who you speak to. Do you speak to vagrants in the street?
I try to. It's difficult for me, but I try to.
All right. But you know what I'm talking about. The people you speak to all have mortgages.
Yeah.
Right? They have car payments.
Yeah.
Enough said. They have credit cards. In other words, the people you speak to have money. I don't know how many people, when we're talking about coaching, I don't know how many people have budgeted X amount of money for coaching in the coming year. That's generally not a budgeted item. But I know some people that do. But that being said, if they haven't, and you're uncovering that desire, I've got to have this. And like Tom was saying, we're asking those questions that get them into that place of discomfort. And then understanding what that'll do for them on an individual, personal basis. What will that do for them?
Yeah.
Oftentimes,
this is great for me because I got two pros that are, coaching me on this, and so I'm learning. So I had a guy, a tax attorney, terrible time management and motivation. Probably didn't really like being a tax attorney. He preferred to play tennis, watch YouTube, play Sudoku, play online chess. And so, we had a couple of free sessions, and I did a little time management pick chart with him, and showed, hey, you don't have to give up all of anything, right? But if you cut back here, here, and here, and he told me where he was willing to cut back. I said, you can have 20 more productive hours per week. And I said, at your rate, how much is that per year? And he ran off the number. And then I made a mistake. I offered him a price that I thought he couldn't refuse. And what I learned was that I should have asked him, well, what would it be worth to you? As opposed to offering the price. Because he probably, he would have had to say at least 5%, and that would have been more than enough.
Here's what I look for at that time for the prospect to say. Unless they say it's priceless, I don't think I've gone deep enough. See, if you're given a strict number based on an outcome, that's needs. That's not wants. ROI to me is needs-based, not wants-based. When you're talking a raw number, it's logic, not emotion. But I know I've got somebody when they say, oh my God, I couldn't even, when I say, what's that worth to you? To be able to, let's go back to that earlier example, to spend an hour every week with your mother for the last few years of her life. What is that worth to you? Oh my God, I couldn't even put a value on it. Great. Tom, you were ready to say something.
Just another question you can ask if for some reason you get to the priceless answer, you can be persistent and say, well, great, but how could we quantify that?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just use some back of the envelope math for just a moment here. How many hours, what's your time, where, and by the way, what would that enable you to do that you can't do now? Or what's that preventing you from doing that you otherwise wouldn't
do?
How do we quantify that?
That's it. And if they quantify that and they say it's price or it's $100,000, and oftentimes someone will throw a figure on the table, right? So I usually say, what would you be willing to invest to have that $100,000 within the next 3 months? Oh my goodness, I'd give you $10,000. Great. When do you want to start?
Yep.
I don't mean to be a wise ass saying that, but it's happened. Mike, is this making sense?
Yeah, this is very good because, there's, I learned the book, right? But then there's this thing called fluency.
Yes.
And, it just, you just got to be there. You got to make mistakes. You got to get corrected, and I've learned a couple, 3 languages in my life, and it's a very similar process, right?
Interesting. I make mistakes every day in this game, but I think part of being a trusted advisor is being able to be in someone's world on their terms, not on our terms. And I think it's a lot more than teaching. I just think it's facilitating their world and facilitating their decision-making process so they get what they want through their own machinations, so to speak. What else?
So seeing as how you guys are so helpful, I'm going to take advantage of it if you don't mind. And Wendy, if I'm going the wrong way, then just stop me and I'll back off, right?
This is good. Keep going.
So I had a wants and needs discussion, and speaking of languages, it was all in Spanish, right? I'm fluent in conversational Spanish. I grew up in Chile and Bolivia, but I never practiced business Spanish, right? And so in the course of 2 hours, my fluency in business Spanish went up 100% or more, right? As I stumbled over words and they helped me out, but they never wanted to switch to English, even though they knew that I was not fluent in business Spanish. They were perfectly comfortable talking in Spanish. And so in the course of it, it was still a wants and needs kind of thing. I wasn't ready to throw any kind of a program out, let alone a price. And so we got to the point where their big want is, especially the lady, it's a husband and wife, she would like to take a vacation together to Argentina as opposed to separately because they don't have anybody they can trust the business with. That was her big want. There were some other minor things out there, right? Like she'd like to have employees they trust. That kind of goes with taking a vacation. And, they want more sales. Their finances are totally commingled between personal and business, and they'd like to sort that out. But their big want was being able to take this trip, right? And I asked him, I says, well, what does it take to do that? And then the husband jumps right in and says, oh, we got to increase our sales by 40 or 50%. I don't know where he came up with that number, but that's okay because I have a number that kind of relates to it. And then he says, don't forget, we got to make profit too. Okay. So that's about where I got. But I guess the question is, given that, I got to that point, and now I'm in the process of preparing the next conversation, which will not be in person. It will be by phone because they're at least an hour and a half away when the traffic is cooperative. When I came back on Friday afternoon, it was almost 4 hours. So I'm not making that trip on a regular basis. Anyway, any hints on how do I push this forward and let them tell me what they're willing to invest?
Yes.
Probably
I'm
haven't told
going to
you
go
that.
to Tom first.
Yeah.
My gut is telling me you missed an opportunity when you started getting, you got what they wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but you asked it, this is tactics, but you asked what they needed to do to get there. That was the incorrect question at the time. What would have been a better question, Tom? Because I know you know this. So they said, oh, we got to go on this vacation together.
So just think about the goal planning form for just a moment.
Love it.
Right? So, they just filled in box number 1. What's box number 2? And what's box number 3? And in this case, we'll create our own box number 4, which is when do we start?
Yeah.
Yeah, does that make sense, Mike? So I would go right there. What's that going to do for you? What is Tom's question? If you do that, what's that going to mean that you can do that you can't do now? It's going down that path until you ask them what else, and they say, well, that's it. So it's getting into the emotion. You took it from the emotion. They gave you an in, but you took it back to the logic.
Well, and congratulations, because you turned a latent need into an active need. And that's a bingo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So great accomplishment. Congratulations on that, right?
Oh, yeah, you got to that point, but that was the point to keep on digging.
Now, you got the what? You got the need. I need 40% sales increase. Okay. Now, that said, you could also go into the obstacle questions. As we sit here today, what's keeping this from happening? What else? And then you don't get into the possible solutions. The possible solution is, if we had a way to address these to where you're able to hit your sales goals on a more regular and consistent basis, what would you want to do? And of course, the fact that you're asking that question implies that you're the person to help them do it. You don't have to prove yourself. You've asked the question. You had the courage, the confidence to ask that question. I very seldom now ever get my qualifications questioned.
So this is good, because this kind of sets the framework for when I have the conversation with them, nominally this Friday, right?
So, Mike, you are proficient at using the goal planning sheet as a template for a discussion in a sales setting?
I guess I'd have to say no.
Okay. It's something to practice.
Yeah.
You truly practice on them. You can reiterate what you heard from them. What I heard you really wanted to accomplish is X. We went over what that would mean to you, but you really didn't. What's that really going to mean for you? But getting back to what Tom said, what's standing in your way of making that happen? Those are the obstacles. And exhaust those. What else is standing in your way? And let's say they give you 5 of them, and you say, if you doubled your sales, if you hired 3 other people, if you clean the floors twice a week, and you did that, if you did all those, would that ensure that you had that? Yes, it would. Great. Let's look at each one. What's the number one thing? What's the hardest thing here that you need to overcome? What obstacle? Work with them on that. If you, just by conversation, help them fill out a goal planning sheet, invariably, one of the action items that they will have is, well, I guess I need to sit down with you and work with you. Great. And then they'll ask you another question that you're on the right path if they ask you this. Well, Mike, what does that look like? To work with you. And you have to be prepared to answer that question.
What do you say?
Well, the 3 of us are going to be sitting down for 9 consecutive weeks. or as closely as we can get to 9 consecutive weeks, for anywhere between an hour and 2. We're going to share some materials with you that you're going to be reviewing in between. I'm available to take your call at any time in between, blah, 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 blah. I just described what they're going to be doing. That's how I answer it.
Okay, so there's nothing, it's just straightforward, right?
Yes.
Why not?
Okay, well, not
As opposed to what else, Mike? I'm not, we're not meaning to put you on the spot, but as opposed to what else? What's going through your mind?
Well, the way you said it, I thought there was more of a like an emotional thing in there, as opposed to here's the logistics, the facts of how to do it.
Well, if they ask what does it look like, I tell them exactly what it looks like. Because that is, remember, that's their action item. Their action item is to work with us. Yeah, I guess we need to get together and figure this out. So what does that look like? They don't know if they're going to a classroom setting or, a Zoom conference. They don't know what it is. I mean, if you're an hour and a half away or 4 hours away, obviously it might have to be a conference or, I don't know about Tom, but I do a lot of my coaching over the phone, a lot. And I'm never doing this. I'm never seeing my client. So, but you have to be willing.
Another question that I get, and I enjoy it because I have a very good answer for them. Do we get to work with you? Yes, you do. All me.
No, let me call Kovitz. You can call him.
Well, yeah, I need a guy in Delaware. And I do have somebody in San Diego that's doing something for me next month, but usually the answer is it's me. I said,
It's you. Yeah. Yeah.
This is no bait and switch here. Because that's the fear they have. That I'm going to pass them off on somebody else. I'm just the rainmaker.
I've tried that in the past. Doesn't work.
Because they bought you.
Yep. And that's the whole key, Mike, is for them to buy you. Not the process, not anything else. They're buying you. You're the key to unlocking what they want to unlock. And
do what you need to do to believe that you are. Because if there's little voices in your head questioning, they're not. It's real hard to sell you, isn't it?
What else, Mike? Come on, man. Bring it. Nothing else?
Oh no, I'm sure there's a ton of stuff. I'm trying to pick through the rubble here, and find.
All right, so I'm going to give you a break, Mike. So when I read, so I'm here today, right? And didn't know that's my first whatever we call these things, learning lab, first learning lab. And so I read your catchy question title, which is, "Are you digging deep enough?" That's and I've looked at other titles and whatever. It's not. But you know what? My answer is probably not. And it's not that I don't know what to do because I've been at this a while. We get lazy.
Bingo.
We get lazy. And so what I was hoping, as a takeaway, are you digging deep enough? And my answer is, okay, probably not. Maybe if I tune in, I get hooked a bit.
Well, let's satisfy you, my friend. First of all, that was Wendy's idea. I had no idea what the title was.
Great question, Wendy, and look what it attracted, me.
Tom, whenever I go back and think about what I didn't do well on a sales call, it's because I didn't do what I know how to do, period.
Yep.
And for me, if I get away from the goal planning sheet model, that's when I get myself twisted. And I do all the time. Yeah, called lazy.
Sometimes, Alan, confess, I succeed anyway. And that just encourages more sloppiness.
Right. Got it. So I have to remind myself. In fact, I've got a call after we're done here to remind myself to revert back with this prospect because I know from her responses to our last phone call, whoops, and I know exactly where I goofed up. And that's it. To remain on task. stay on task. Look, we've been involved so long, Tom, we've got that goal planning sheet tattooed on our behinds, but sometimes I forget to look there, and I need to have that in front of me on a regular basis. Just stick with it. Ask the questions. It always leads to the right place. Always.
Yep.
So that's, and you hit it. I don't know if it's laziness. It just,
well, it's sloppy, lazy.
It's sloppy. I think it's sloppy.
I have stuck versus sloppy right on my pad here.
Yeah, I think
I'm not stuck. I'm sloppy.
You know why? Because we've made sales even when we are sloppy.
Yes.
Right? So we've done
get complacent.
Yep. So you get complacent.
So thank you, Wendy, for that great question.
It is a great question. It is a great question. But the other thing is going deep. Even with clients, when you're working with them, I think we neglect to go deep. And for me, that's usually in a group setting. It's that little thing. I don't want to embarrass someone in front of 3 other people or what have you. One-on-one, I'm fearless. But in a group, when I've worked best is when I'm fearless, even in the group.
Uh-huh.
And when someone turns red in front of their peers or people they don't know or whatever the case may be. But good God,
So maybe the end does justify the means.
I think it does. So it's about being fearless and brave and all those other things. So, just like any other, like an athlete, you've got to, be on point as often as you can. And be ready for the game. And we all get off game.
Well, and I ran into this again. I've got an entrepreneur now. I've been working with a lot of corporate people. I've got an entrepreneur in coaching now. And I knew that he wasn't going to do his homework. I knew it.
Yep.
And maybe that's generally predictable anyway, but in the kickoff, he goes, well, I wrote a check. I said, yeah, I've had people write me checks before. Let's just see how committed you are.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he wasn't. So I'll see him on Wednesday.
I used to do everything in my power, and we used to go over this at the quarterlies and what have you. What do we need to do to keep people committed and to have them do their work? And if they don't do it, they don't do it. And that's when I'm fearless and ask them the questions. So what's keeping you from doing the work? Blah, 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 all these excuses. I said, how are these excuses working for you in the other parts of your life? And I just, yes, I know I'm supposed to do it. So great. Even at the end, when I have them commit to doing goals, it's something I do. What are you going to accomplish between now and the next time we meet? Well, I'm going to get all of this shit done. I don't know how many times I've heard that. Okay. That's the most important thing you need to do? Yeah, I didn't hire you for me not to do this stuff. Great.
Aha.
Aha's right. So they write it down. I'm going to do it in its entirety. Great. Love it. And Tom, 99 out of 100 times they buck up and do what they need to do. So, it's the rare person that doesn't do the work. But those are the people that drop out and leave. And, I've had a couple of those. So, but it's being brave and fearless and not being afraid of the ramifications of that. Do you give a guarantee, Tom?
I do. Again, do I get sloppy with offering a guarantee? Yeah, I get sloppy.
Well, if you don't need
on
to.
my website though, and and a lot of them find me there, and so there it is. And so let's after we have 4 meetings in the process, does this make sense or doesn't make sense? If it's not working for you, then let's not do this. But and partly why I guess I'm sloppy is I think I'm so smart that I know they're engaged, in the right or wrong.
So you don't ask them the question.
I don't. Yeah, right. I'm pretty sure I know.
But how many people really drop out?
No one's ever dropped out.
I've had a couple.
I had one, and again, this was like my rookie year. I had one. I didn't do a decent kickoff, didn't get the commitment, and I softened it up a bit. I just changed the approach a bit, so they allowed them to be engaged.
Got it. Yeah.
This doesn't go with are you digging deep enough, but it is a good question. Do you still ask for referrals when you do a statement of work?
I have it on my invoices. So there's a fee plus 2 qualified referrals. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked them. And after they've paid me, I said, remember, there's another part of the fee that hasn't been handled yet. Oh, yeah. I'll get them for you. Now, what I don't do a good job of is contacting them later, 6 months down the road, a year. Although, Wendy, I've got a cadre of people that I've been working with for a really long time, and they are a great source of referrals to this day. So I tried something this year, speaking of referrals. I actually have a client within the last 6 months that I've been working with who owns a branding company. They do tchotchkes and all this other stuff. So I gave her an order to give a gift to all my clients, which I really haven't done. And I thought it was a way of having meetings and what have you to do exactly what you're talking about without asking them, saying, here, this is my appreciation for our work. That's it. I would not say, oh, and what referrals do you have for me?
Yeah.
So, I've given about half of those away, in the goodwill, not gotten a referral from it, but I know I will.
Yeah.
So, but it is on my invoices, all of them.
Okay.
To this day.
So
I kind of went along with that guarantee, and then I wanted to ask about the referrals. See if you still did that. Thank you.
So I don't, because I've got like these corporate gigs, HR's bringing me in and that kind of thing. So I don't force the referral thing. Ideally, a referral is, oh, okay, you did such a great job with this person. Here's another and another, and so I get that.
Right.
I do though with the individual in my post process. I send them a form, 6 questions or so, and then the last question is, could you share some names? But it's not part of the transaction. It's just by the way, who do you know that would benefit from working with me?
I asked the same question.
So
A post-work survey.
Mm-hmm.
That's work, doesn't work. But, I think we're at 2 different markets, Tom, really,
Yes.
about it.
But I have not had a lot of success with it either. I do sometimes get some names, but again, it's not their idea for coaching. It's, hey, I have a client, she has referred both of her sisters. One of them engaged and the other did not.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
So, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and it was, well, that's good for you, but. And so, okay.
Yeah.
As we learn, I don't want to be spending my time with someone that doesn't really care about being with me any more than that other person wants to. So, fine.
Yeah, I just had a person 3 weeks ago call me that I worked with 12 years ago. Said, I've got someone you need to speak to. And she had it all set up for me and what have you. So, I still get those kind of referrals. So they're still out there. And I think, it's always mentioning, and I do say this often at networking functions, networking meetings, when I'm with a group of people, I say, look, my business has grown to where it is today based on referrals and word of mouth. That is what I do. So any good words you can use in my favor, I'd love that. Yeah, sure. Great. But I'm really a soft sell guy, have been, and probably will go to my grave as a soft sell guy. What else, Mike? You there?
You're muted, but we've given you a chance to collect your thoughts and questions. This is a golden opportunity.
So typically we have two conversations going on in our mind, right? The one we're speaking and the one we're preparing to deliver. But this time I was pretty much listening to you, so I didn't do much homework there.
Well, good.
That's
You know
Yeah.
why? Because the one that you're preparing to deliver, if you're thinking about that, you're not in the conversation.
You're not an engaged listener.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's part of free flowing with the prospect. Actually, you hit upon something that we all get stuck in doing. Thinking about what's the next question we have to ask. It should be a direct.
You cannot be an engaged listener if you're doing that. Can't.
I agree.
anything that you gentlemen have learned in your years of experience to kind of help you turn that off?
One thing for me that works great. I stopped taking notes. And I no longer even bring paper with me to write notes. That forces me to focus on the question. And never has anyone said to me, well, where's your piece of paper to write down notes? Because who were the notes for? Who were they for? They were for me. Until you're 100% about the other person, you're not fully engaged.
So I know, Michael, you tend to be more detailed, structure focused. So Alan, if you don't take notes in the meeting, then how do you remember all that good stuff?
What do I need to remember?
Any pertinent details?
I remember you're marching them through a goal planning sheet.
Mm-hmm.
I'll always remember what the ultimate goal is.
The goal.
Okay? I think that's easy to remember because we're burning it in going through the sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And as we go through the sheet, they come to the action steps. And the action step includes me. Or it doesn't. As long as I remember their goal, I'm okay. Because what if the action steps don't include me, they don't use me, they figured things out on their own. And this happens. Great. Wow. You've really helped me think through this issue. I think I now know what to do. Great. When should we speak next? That's it. And when we speak next, I will remember the goal. So how are you doing? And if I don't remember the goal, I ask the same question. How are you doing? And the conversation starts anew.
Okay.
So that's my way. I'm not saying not to take notes. It's in our material to take notes. I don't agree with it. For me, I do a whole lot better when I am lasered in on the prospect. So I don't write down notes.
A pen and a pad is just it's my security blanket, and I just can't let go. Okay. Now that said, I sometimes have trouble reading my notes because I scribble because I don't try not to get too focused on the notes. But I just hope that soon after I can transcribe my own. I close a fair amount of deals over the phone without ever meeting the person and someone in person.
Likewise.
What's that?
Likewise.
And so that said, and it's like, and my goal when it's coaching, and it's kind of there's some intangibles in play. So my goal question for these phone conversations, and let me set the stage. They've come to me because I have a website that attracts them for executive coaching, be it executive presence, leadership. So they've come to me. They know what I do. They've come to me. So they have an active need. There's something they want to act on it. I just want to understand what it is. And so I do the visionary goal question, which is, let's imagine it's a year from now. It's February of 2020. And we're talking like we are now, only there's something different. We've worked together, and you're much better than you were before. Talk about what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
What else? 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 And by the way, what else? And those things I take notes on. And so, and because then I have a ready reference, that's my laundry list. This is what you're going to get out of coaching. So I will talk about how here's my approach and here's how it will address that. When can we start? Here's the deal when you want to start. And I work in phases. So phase one of coaching is like $1,500 to $1,800. They can't afford $1,500 to $1,800, then they're not qualified and we're done.
Right.
So I get phase one. I'm like the crack dealer. I don't give it away, but I just make it take an offer they can't refuse. And if I don't have a phase two, I got $1,800 in my pocket and the relationship, and then there's value.
Love it. Love it. I don't keep those things. One, I must have a good memory because I remember the basics. I really do. I don't know why or how, but I don't write these things down. And invariably, what I find is that when I start working with people, what they want to accomplish changes as we go. They find out more about themselves, and so much of their desires change.
Well, I think, Alan, there's three things that we need to do in the process. We need to take notes, keep an open mind, and embrace change. So I do at least two out of those three.
Yeah, likewise.
Wink, wink.
But remember, I'm not there to learn what they do. They're supposed to learn what they do.
Well, that's Mike, for what it's worth, you get that in the coaching academy. Now, how dare you ask a question about you don't understand it's not important that you understand what they do. It's important that they understand it and don't get off of them to satisfy your intellectual curiosity.
Right on.
So my limited experience is I have done it both ways, right? I'm actually more comfortable not taking notes, where I can totally focus on the full communication package. Because when you're looking down at your notepad, you're not looking at the body language, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm much more comfortable not taking notes, but I'm also scared that I'll forget something, right? And so what happens when I take notes, I remember a whole lot more.
What do you need to remember?
Hmm?
What do you need to remember?
I remember all kinds of things, right? Some of them are, the emotional wants. Some of them are the facts of the business. Some of them are the body language of somebody tearing up. And I tend to do that better when I'm taking notes, even though I'm not writing down, oh, he teared up, right? I don't
No. But then take notes.
But
whatever works for you.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to tell you is that it's a mixed bag for me, right? Because sometimes I'm more comfortable not taking notes. I just have this fear. And so what you're telling me is that, work through the goal planning sheet. It'll all kind of drop into the right buckets, and I'll remember the important things. And if I don't remember, it's okay to ask.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we met, you would mention something about this, and I don't remember specifically what you said. Again, you have favorable attention with someone, Mike. You can say that you goofed and you didn't remember. No one's going to say you're a better coach for that. So if you're vulnerable, you'll help the other person be vulnerable. And that's where the great gains are made, in that vulnerable space.
So here's a little nuance, right? So when I perceive subconsciously, I'm going to say that I'm working with a high S and C kind of person, I tend to take notes. When I'm working with a high D and I kind of person, and I'm being very polarizing here, right? I tend not to take notes, right? So, and I just realized that because the last time I took notes, man, the lady especially was really high S and C, right? I mean, everything had to be crossed, every T crossed at the right angle, I's dotted at the right size dot kind of a person, right?
I'd be worried they criticize my handwriting, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's about me.
Can I ask you a question, Mike?
Sure.
Can I ask you another one? That I just did. Which type of person would you rather work with?
I'd rather work with the high S and C.
Then then take notes. I would rather work on the other end.
Those people.
Day
Alan,
long.
my confession is, I tend not to be drawn to those people, and my blind spot is empathy. So I always think, okay, what's going on here, Mike? And what's really going on is that I'm not empathetic enough to deal with them as a person because they intimidate me.
Understood.
And so, if somebody's intimidating you, it's real hard to remember to be empathetic. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. Understood. So, each of us has to figure out, our target market.
Yeah.
Part of that's in your target market, and your target market might determine your sales process.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I know it determines someone's buying process. That's for sure.
Say it again.
It determines someone's buying process. So remember, you have a selling process, and the person sitting across from you has a buying process. And the twain needs to meet somehow. I'm just saying, for me, it's a whole lot easier working with those high D's and I's. A whole lot easier.
Well, you're likely to stereotype, you're going to have a shorter sales process.
Yes.
There was a book going around the network around the time I joined, Selling to Veto.
That's right.
Okay. And Selling to Veto is my biggest takeaway from it. I still use it today and still apply it today, because there are vetoes, very important top officer. That's the acronym. So and in effect, Tony didn't have DISC to talk about it, but they're assertive, high utilitarian, high economic, high Ds. That's who makes it to the top. And he said there's two kind of people in the world when you're selling. There are vetoes and there are Seymours. And he spelled Seymours, Seemores. And why would he call them Seymours?
See more data.
They always have to see more, and they don't get promoted. And if you're stuck in middle management with a middle management Seymour, good luck making a sale. So be careful about what you wish for there. Just Tony Parinello.
So you asked me who I was more comfortable with.
Yes.
Maybe I should learn to be comfortable with an expanded set.
Let me make a suggestion. So, what we know about high Ds is their inherent emotion is anger. And there's bluster to them, okay? Do you see that as a strength or a weakness?
It depends.
So it depends, all right?
Okay. So is it possible that their propensity to get angry all the time perhaps isn't serving them? How might you help them with that? How might you develop some empathy about this poor person can't get out of his, can't get out of his or her way with this constant impatient now, and driving everybody nuts. How might you help with that? How easy does it have, so you can be intimidated, or you can look at that high D behavior and go, well, that's kind of interesting. He really can't help it, can he? And he can't. And so perhaps there's a way you can help.
I think Mike has a lot to think about, which is great.
Well, and Mike, we're all here. So if you, want to process and you have more questions, reach out to me. I'm sure Alan or Tom, I'm going to speak for you. Speaking of the high D, I made a decision for you. Would be happy to talk with you as well.
I was assigned to Gerard.
We've picked enough other people's brains over the last 2 decades that, we'd be hypocritical if we didn't want to reciprocate.
Isn't that
so I work with Gerard. I meet with him once a week, except for today he was sick, and that's been great. And easily a dozen affiliates have taken a lot of time to help me. I mean, I've not reached out to either of you two gentlemen, and I Wendy and I talk occasionally, but not much. I mostly talk with Gerard, right? Most of my fluency has come from emulating the other affiliates.
Mm-hmm.
It's really pretty simple.
Good.
Alan's taught me a thing or two over the years,
Likewise.
or 8 or 10, 15, 20.
Yeah. Holy shit. We will be working on 20. Good God.
Well, Wendy, I'll just say when we first met, my hair was jet black or very, very dark brown.
I know.
I don't know if Alan, you had any more or less hair, but I had very dark hair back in the day.
I remember those days, Mr. Lemansky.
Your high school picture.
Yeah. Liz. What else? We done?
Yeah, we're at the 4 o'clock time, so I want to thank you, Alan, for taking this afternoon. Tom, Mike, thank you as well. We'll get this up to the affiliate website, so if you want to review it, and like I said, Mike, I know you're in good hands with Gerard, but, you know, we're always here too as well if you need anything.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Take care, guys.
Oh, so this is being recorded. I didn't hear that disclaimer. I don't know if I have to sign. Oh,
There's a little button in the upper left-hand corner, Tom. You see it?
oh, it says recording. Look at that. I'll learn to be. So, Mike, I'm a 97I, so I don't look at those details. After the fact, yeah. All right, I'll let you.
Well, we're just using it for the affiliates to listen to if they missed the call.
And I didn't say anything that would incriminate me. So,
No, you didn't. Somebody for the dark hair.
yeah, well, that's still on. If you dig on the dark web, I'm sure there's pictures of me with dark hair or whatever. So,
All right. You guys have a great rest of your afternoon.
You too.
All right.
See you guys.
See ya. Thanks again, Alan.
You're welcome. Bye.